Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. On today's show, we welcome the owner of Walt Eger's Service Center, Mr. Bruce Spencer. Bruce has a pretty incredible story of how he got into automotive, along with the accomplishments of his wonderful children. And I am really, really, really excited for this episode. Bruce, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to kind of lead with what I followed with there in my intro. You just got back from Las Vegas for NBA Summer League. Can you tell us a little bit as to why you were at NBA Summer League?
I did, and sure, I'd be happy to. We've got three sons, and the two older boys are actually participating in the NBA Summer League. So both teams had a good run. We went from Friday to Friday. Both teams made the Final Four for the Summer League. My oldest boy, his team did not get to the finals. The Memphis Grizzlies, for my middle son, they did get to the finals, although he had tweaked his ankle earlier in the week and wasn't able to participate in the balance of the Summer League. But things went well for both of them. They both played individually well, and their teams had some success. So, still kind of living the dream, if you will.
Yeah, at some point, and just so everybody is aware, his son Cam won a national championship on UConn's unbelievable team this year, and at some level you almost have to pinch yourself a little bit, right? Because not everybody has two kids vying for a spot in the NBA. It's pretty impossible.
Yeah, I think it's as magical as it is and as fun as it is. People sometimes make the mistake of asking us if we enjoy it. And I just have to explain that enjoy is not the right word. I mean, when you have your kids with, trying to achieve highest goals possible, you want to live with them. Some people might accuse you of living through them. So I would say I'm guilty of that. My wife as well. And actually many of our family members are guilty of that. But at the same time, it's stressful too, because you are trying to achieve something that's a lot of people question your mind space, if you will, about what are you thinking? Why do you think you can pull that off? And the answer is because they feel they can, and they're confident about it. So
I think that's going to lead really nicely into our conversation about you and how it relates to the automotive space. And really, there's so many principles as we were prepping for this podcast that apply to both raising children and raising good people within your businesses. So I'm really pumped to dive into this conversation. So let's get into you. How did you get into automotive? You didn't start off owning an automotive repair shop or really being in an automotive repair shop, did you?
I did not, Jay. No, and to this day, you don't want me touching your vehicle. I can probably do a nice test drive if you tell me what I'm looking for. But other than that, I got into the business simply because I had spent the better part of my career in corporate life and had some decent success there. But we had moved our family 5 times, and we had made the decision that we were back in Maryland, where we're from originally, my wife and I, and we didn't want to move the kids anymore. And they were at that point getting to an age where they were starting to have some more success with their sports, and they were setting some goals. And so I was running a division for Honeywell, and I was actually commuting to either Chicago or Rhode Island each week. So I had the luxury of being the general manager of a couple different divisions, so I could make my own schedule to a degree. Sometimes I was pulled in different directions for corporate things, but we had a small 3-year trek to Rhode Island, and we had 3 sons. My wife was on an island by herself while I was still traveling and going crazy, and it was a lot on her. And the way we got to Rhode Island is I had been transitioned out of a company. That happened to me twice. And so as I got transitioned, she was on board, and we went to Rhode Island, and she really had to take one for the team. And our commitment and goal to each other was to try to get back to Maryland, to get the kids back on, family footing, if you will. We're from here, and we value family quite extensively. And so they were able to come back and kind of get on with their careers. I say they get on with their careers. When we moved back, they were, my oldest was in 6th grade at the time. But we really had started to put down some roots with the 3 boys here in Maryland before moving to Rhode Island for 3 years. So we really wanted to get back and enjoy their grandparents for, some really formative years for them. and we were able to pull it off. And what we didn't anticipate was the level of success that they would have with their sports. But that doesn't mean that we've pretty much been all in on sports from the get-go. And, sometimes with the oldest one, you taper a little bit because you run out of hours in the day. But with the oldest one, it wasn't uncommon for him to be on 3 teams in the spring, playing a couple of cross teams and playing, a baseball season too. So we were all over the place. But we had a lot of grandparents, helping us shag the kids.
It takes a village, right? And I think before we dive into really how you entered into automotive, one thing I want to spend a minute talking about is how important having that strong spouse is, and really the person that supports you while you're going out and you're trying to feed the family, essentially, right? You're trying to make sure that you're taking care of your business obligations along with your family obligations. And a lot of times that work-life balance can be really, really tough to manage. So having that strong support system and your wife in general is really a game changer for everything.
Absolutely, 100%. And so I don't think I finished answering your initial question with regard to how I got into automotive, but I was commuting out of state. I'll finish that and then I'll get to the next part.
Yeah, sorry, I probably threw you off there a little bit.
No, it's my fault. No, I went on a tangent, so probably won't be the last one. You can pull me back as we go. Keep me between the lines, if you will. So basically, I was transitioned out of Honeywell. I had a couple of what I consider bad actors get in some key roles and put a few of us out. And unfortunately, you don't really get to call your shot in a corporate world, all the time, or very often, frankly, as it relates to, moving on. So to my wife's credit, she said, you remember I had commuted out of state for about 7 years. So I didn't really have a business network here in Maryland. And as I was pursuing other opportunities, people were trying to figure out why I'd be willing to take a step back for another role. And large corporations want you to be on board with them, right? So it was going to require relocation most likely. And we decided we weren't going to do that. So my wife, to her credit, said, well, you better get creative. So I started looking for businesses that maybe we could afford. Still going to have to take out a pretty good loan to get one. But Walt Eger's caught my eye because Walt wasn't asking the normal small amount for a 3 or 4 bay shop. It's a 15 bay shop. It's a large business. He had really been looking to retire and get out of it. He had spent 3 or 4 months at a time in Tennessee, setting up shop for himself. So when I started doing my due diligence on the acquisition, it became apparent that he had key people in place who could run the business and could hold the fort down while I was coming up a very steep learning curve. So all the stars and everything lined up for us to get the deal done. It was a risk for me. People think, wow, you really, you had a lot of guts to do that. But the bottom line is we had made the decision that we weren't going to move again. We were tired of the corporate world and, owning your own independent business can be really refreshing. And it was very stressful for the first few years, but we'll talk about the empowerment and the things that we've done to grow it and the team that we have in place now and how that really allows you a lot of freedom. So I guess the answer to your question is that's how I got here, but people want to give me credit for, having the guts to go and do this. But frankly, I was playing defense when we pulled this off. And it was stressful as heck for the first few years simply because I wasn't received within the shop as knowing anything because I'm not from the industry. So one of the things that I mentioned to you I'd like to talk about is, my relationship with ATI. So Walt Eger had a relationship going back to Chubby, long time ago when Chubby was really just getting things going. I don't know whether Walt was one of the founding members of ATI, but he was probably pretty close. And so, I joined the ATI family, and really Walt, I would have to say, didn't do a great job of explaining during the acquisition of exactly what ATI represented to somebody like me coming in, having not been from the industry. So it was a godsend because I actually, part of the acquisition, I contracted some hours from Walt to help me come up the learning curve. And it wasn't to be disrespectful to him, but when I found out what I had with an ATI and that I had this team behind us potentially, to be with us each day, they've been great to me. So I've got relationships at, the highest levels within ATI. I'm part of a CEO group now that has been game changing for us, because I was part of a 20 group that I think admittedly all of us within that 20 group would say we were getting stale, and we had kind of run our course for our ability to help each other. And, ATI works hard to reinvent itself and to create higher levels for its members. And so, as being part of the CEO group, we do different exercises where we'll have what we call a shop spotlight. Our shop was involved in that. We got the benefit of that. So, lots of great things that have happened. And not only as part of being part of the CEO group, we'll talk about it in a minute, but we have a COO in place who runs all daily operations. And he's empowered to run everything day to day. And so, is that answering some of your questions?
It is.
Sending the message that you want to get out of this, because I can continue with regard to that relationship with our COO and what's going on there by way of the CEO program, if you'd like.
I think so. And I think we keep going here because I think it's not necessarily a negative that you didn't have the industry background coming into it. It was probably that steep learning curve that you talked about, but it also probably gave you some advantages of seeing how a corporation is run or a bigger company is run and how the structure is involved with that. I know my background spending a little bit of time in corporate, it was definitely eye-opening to see how differently they ran a business. Some really good things, some maybe not so great things. But being able to come into it and then have a coach that kind of leads you along the way, I think that's probably a really effective strategy for setting a really solid foundation.
Absolutely. I had to laugh at myself. I've done a lot of personality profiling and throughout my career, so I'm pretty self-aware. A lot of people would think I'm this really type A, go get it, and I am at one level. But when it comes to decision making, I'm actually more of an engineer, if you will. I'm going to, measure 10 times. It's like, analysis paralysis. And so I actually had run a division for Honeywell that was a matrix division. And so when you made a decision, it affected so many different functions across the business. So you really had to be thinking and be on your toes with regard to making just some of the most basic decisions, because one decision impacted 3 or 4 other functions. I got here to Walt Eger's and I kind of had that mentality. So there would be basic decisions that needed to be made. And I would catch myself just out thinking it through and through. And then I got this epiphany. Wait a minute. It's my money. It's my business. And all I have to do is make the decision. So just get out of your own way. Personality wise, I get in my own way. My history said I had to think about 50 things before I made a decision. So between those two, people would come into my office and they would be staring at me. I'd be damn near looking at the ceiling, trying to figure out all the little pieces. And then I realized all I have to do is say yes or no, or why we're going to do it or not do it. Basic stuff, but it took me a little while to get there. And then once you kind of cross that path, you realize, hey, this could be fun. So,
yeah. It is weird how that stuff sticks with you over time, though, right? The way that you were brought up in corporate America, and then going back to a small business, and then trying to almost get rid of some of the, not even bad habits, just different habits, right? It's just a different way of doing business.
Yeah, and I wasn't a political participant within the corporate world. In fact, I was always good at kind of managing across a bit and managing down well, but I never managed up very well because I never took the time. I was traveling all the time. I was a family person, so I wasn't trying to get to some, one-off party with somebody that was at a higher level or make sure I'm in the right room with the right people. I never spent any time on that. And again, probably to my demise at some point, but here we are. I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So how long did it take you to get a COO then? Once you got in and started to get comfortable with the business, was the COO already on staff, or was that somebody you brought on after the fact?
Much after the fact. So Rob came on in 2021, I believe it was. This is his third go around. So I bought the business in September 2016. We basically just popped along, kind of maintained. We really didn't. We were within $100,000 either way for the first 4 years that I owned the business. And as you can do the math, that fourth year included COVID. And I guess to my credit, every dollar available. We had state grants, we had county grants, um, and then obviously you had your PPP and all the other things that went along with it. We obtained all that money. I mean, people are there. I look at it as I'm not a big government person, but when the laws are written, and my job is to maximize, shareholder value. I'm the shareholder. And so bottom line is as there were piles of money being doled out, we might as well try to get to the front of the line. So we obtained all the PPP money again, and then we were good stewards with it. So that PPP money, I take a lot of satisfaction for our employees because everybody got paid in whole. And what we did was it was April of 2020. You don't forget this stuff. I said, look, when we get our PPP money, I can pay you 50% now during April. And then when we get the PPP money, we'll pay you 150% during May. So those checks came in and everybody was made, as you can do the math, 50 and 150 is 100% for each month. And so then we had to basically, get on with it in June. But we had a couple months of a lull there and that PPP money carried us through. We also got a grant from the state for $10,000. And we used that money to put up new signage. We hired a local sign company, keep them busy. We hired a local paint company. They painted the outside of the building. So we felt good about using the money that was granted to us in a good local way, which was the spirit of it, we thought. We had the website at the time redone through a county grant. So we hired a local company and they helped us out. So I feel like getting through COVID was great. And actually through those monies that we received, we actually grew the business a little bit too. And so once we grew the business through 2020 and 2021, we were able to hire Rob Cisney, who was our COO. And you asked me about the process of hiring him. I actually, I had a fairly senior guy that I got a relationship with through LinkedIn. And we thought we were going to bring him on. And ultimately what I ended up doing was just getting him a raise. He was a pretty senior guy with Pep Boys and was managing probably 10, 15 stores, something like that for them. And in hindsight, things happen for a reason. I got him a raise. He stayed where he was. And one of my service advisors, and this is the power of just networking or staying in a good spot. Man, did I luck out. He said, I used to work with a guy. And I don't even know if I still have his number, but let me hit him up and I'll have him come in and talk to you. At that time, we had a service advisor role open and the COO role open. So on a Friday afternoon, Rob Cisney, our COO today, walks in the door just to have a discussion. My service advisor hasn't prepped either of us for what we're really there to talk about. It's just to make the introduction. So we're in my office talking. I'm wrongly under the assumption that I'm going to be talking to this individual about the service writing position because he had worked with him. He's a service advisor. What I came to find out is he had been basically Mr. Tires, Mr. Fix-It. So he had been for the last several years going and fixing various Mr. Tire stores. And it's kind of like painting a bridge. If you've got 15 stores of Mr. Tire, you fix one. By the time you fix the 15th, you go back and paint the other side of the bridge and just do it again. And I think that's really what his role was throughout the course of his career with Mr. Tire was, he had managed a store, done well, but he was fixing things. And I said, look, why don't you just come fix us and help us grow? I'll make it easy for you. Lo and behold, he lives 10 minutes from the shop. And so he fell in our lap just through that relationship. But on that Friday afternoon, as we were getting upside down and backwards in our conversation initially, I said, hey, look, let me take a time out. It's becoming clear as we talk that you're at a much more senior level. I have a COO role that's open. I want to give you the job description. I want to tell you a little bit about my vision for this role. And then we've got some, pretty deep personality testing that we take a look at. So why don't you look at what I'm going to talk to you about now over the weekend, think about it, and then, come back in on Monday and we'll sit down and talk for a few minutes and you can tell me if you think you might want to go forward. And so that's what we did. And he went home Monday morning. He took the personality test. I think I got the results back on Tuesday. Mike Bennett with ATI called me and he says, you know what? If you like him and this is his skill set, here's his resume. He's an 89% fit for the role as we've defined it. And that's as high as you're going to get. And then when we looked at it from a personality, what I told you about before is I'm slow to make decisions. ATI had their super conference. It was 20. I'm trying to think. I thought he came on in 21. Rob might have been. He's been there 2 years, I guess it is. February of 22. So at any rate, I probably am off by a year. That's how great it's been. I've forgotten the business to that degree, but he's been a godsend. Now that's true. This is his third year because we did 2.1 the first year, which allowed me to afford him. He came in. We did 2.7 the first year. Last year we did 2.8, but we had a little bumpiness with the $300,000 customer, so it hindered our growth a bit. Good news is that customer came back in full force and is back with us again. We felt like we stood our ground for the value we create for them. And now we're on a pace to do about 3.5 this year. So really in 3
Wow.
years, from 2.1 to 3.5. And it has everything to do with Rob. It has everything to do with the team and less turnover. Had one gentleman leave us as a tech for about a month, and we actually brought him back on board. Not something we like to do. The circumstances felt right to do it. And so we've, knock on glass, wood, whatever you want, but we've had the same technicians in the back for about 2.5 years now, which is, unheard of in our business. We've got a couple of GS techs that are kind of climbing the curve and performing better for us. So we're up to 7, can probably use some more. But the guys keep performing. We've got a team bonus in place. And, as much as you want to hire more techs and kind of out, give yourself more capacity, I also feel like the techs are there and bringing it every day. And they're on flat rate. We're kind of old school that way. For the people I've had a chance to talk to before, I like to hire dogs. I like them to get out there and hunt and to work hard and feel good about their production. So it's more of an empowerment thing. And, I just do believe that if, people have their own opinions about it, like, well, we're in an industry, we need to go to salary and that kind of thing. I just think if you've grown up and you've been, eating what you kill every day, it's a different dynamic when you're on salary. You start looking at the clock. I've grown up running sales organizations. My goal each day is to get up and compete for something. I don't care what it is. So I don't know if that whole
That's
story made any sense or not, but I
it.
love the empowerment. It's how we found our CEO. Rob is running all day today. He's got his sleeves rolled up with the guys. His one challenge is stepping up and making sure he's working on the business for us versus getting sucked into it a little bit. But he's so do it now, hands on, and damn, we have good performance when he does. So we're kind of caught in the middle of, helping him step back and get on the business versus in it. Um, but when he's there, I have full peace of mind in the business and it's going to go well.
That's incredible. And it's really hard to find that kind of person. But I think stepping back a second, give you a lot of credit for having the foresight to even think of hiring a true COO, right? I think so many shops that are out there struggle to get their hands around that side because either they don't want to lose that control of the business or they don't, for whatever reason, might not think that they can afford somebody like that. But in your experience, it sounds like that's paid itself off in spades, right? Having that person that you can rely on to make sure the day-to-day operations are running good.
Yeah, and think about the perfect storm for me, right? So I'm not from the industry. So I didn't build this watch, right? I bought the watch. And so I'm trying to figure out a little bit of how all the key parts of the watch work, but I have no intention of putting a watch together. So many shop owners have built that watch and it's their baby. And so it's really hard for them to step out. For me, the transition from what I was doing to putting in a COO was like that because nobody asked me questions anyway. What I see with shop owners is, and I've seen this because I've seen so many people trying to put in a second in command, they need to not answer the questions. So it was simple. People didn't ask me a lot of questions anyway. But the few questions that I would get from people when we made this transition, it was a simple transition. I would just say, what did Rob say? Or did you talk to Rob about it? Or is that something that you and Rob and I need to talk about? So those are the 3 answers that people would get. And it didn't take long where they said, well, he's useless. I'm not going to ask him any questions anymore because I was just going to deflect them to Rob. But I do see time and time again people who say they want to put in this COO role, and then they step on that person's toes, or it gets a little bit, this is running a business is a bit like parenting, right? Because you have people who are watching what you're doing, what you say as the owner really matters. And so you have to be cautious with your words sometimes. And so I frustrate people in the shop because I'm non-committal on so many things. And they think it's your business. Why don't you just make the decision? And I'm not non-committal because I don't have an opinion. I'm non-committal because it'll disrupt what we have in place. So if you want to think that I'm not doing anything or whatever, it's cool by me because you know what? I kind of am not doing anything, but I'm much more involved than you would know with one-to-ones with Rob and really just making sure the team is in a decent spot. My one-to-ones generally deal with just personnel discussions, which is how's the team doing? What are the dynamics? What's the team need? I would say the guys, but we have a couple ladies that work for us too. So what does the team need? I'm there to just try to make sure they have the resources they need and to make sure that, we talked about it a little bit, live in our values because I do own that. The only interview questions that I asked had to do with making sure that people are willing to come in and live our values, because if they don't, they can't work there. So we've published them. We've put videos out on it. We don't just put it up on the wall. We have an introduction letter to any new customer. They get a letter from Rob and from me. It's co-signed, and then they get the values, our TRICE, and it's trust, respect, intentions, communication, and empathy. So all of that's, pretty prominent on our website, but it's really more about, hey, this is what you can expect from us. And then if you don't feel like you're getting this, call my cell phone. And so I don't, I've gotten maybe 2 phone calls in 8 years. And if you just hire right on the front end, and we've had some misses and we walk people out the door because they didn't live our values. You're not going to lie to us. We take bad news all day long, but the minute you lie, you're gone. So anyway, that's my soapbox on the values.
Well, I think the values are so important because you're actually living them too. Coming from the corporate side, I think we both saw times where you would have values plastered all over the walls and then see how leadership's actually running things. And you're like, that doesn't quite jive with everything that they're saying here. And when you actually live the values and you live by the values, if you hire and fire based on the values, everything, if it's run by the values, it actually has some merit to it. Whereas if it's just kind of one of those nice shiny plaques on the wall and it's not doing anything, nobody takes it seriously and nobody even really looks at it.
Right. And listen, hey, look, you know what? Internally, you have people who want to question at times whether you're living those values or not. So we did our, through ATI. I give them this is not an ATI promotion, but I've used it.
we love the guys at ATI too. Absolutely. Yes.
There are other coaching, organizations that have similar toolboxes, I'm sure, but essentially doing what we call an E3 survey. It's an employee survey. And, we got banged hard for questioning whether we were living our values. And I took that really personally because, I'm stepping out of the day to day. I wanted to get an understanding of what that meant. And through kind of reading between the lines, I realized we're doing stuff a lot differently now than when Walt owned the business. And we have a few legacy folks that are there that I think, sometimes you run into the trap of just because I said it, everybody believes it. That must make it true. But you can really fall into that if they don't buy into it. And we had a really good debrief after the employee survey. And my feedback to them was, look, we're doing things a lot differently. And that could lead you to believe that we're not living our values and being forthright. So I'll give you an example, and this is the perfect example. Walt used to say, we only fix what needs to be fixed. All right. So if you went and did your oil changes somewhere else and little things somewhere else, that was fine. When you have an issue, bring it to Walt Eger's because we've got great technicians and we can fix it. So that was, we only fix what needs to be fixed. So we circle ahead, we get into digital inspections. We have the history on the vehicle. We have all the maintenance that's required on the vehicle by the manufacturer. We have all that information at our fingertips. So we've included that thoroughly in a 45-point inspection. The new technicians, 100% on board and going through every detailed part of the process. And they're coming up with, quoting out. We used to quote $700 and sell 600 of it and say we're closing 90%. And I never understood on my dashboards why is that not the way to do this? Now we're quoting anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 and closing 40%, but with a marketing process and follow up to go identify that extra $1,500. Our ARO is chasing right at about $1,000. So, now we're doing it differently. So remember, Walt was, we only fix what needs to be fixed. And so our E3 survey came back and said, and you're not living the values because you're trying to sell them $2,500 worth of work. And our answer is, no, we're not. Over time we are, but not all at that visit. And we don't expect you to not come here again. We want to have that relationship. So many shops are doing it that way, and as they should be, but we had to change to do it that way. And that was bumpy as it appeared that we weren't living our values in the way we were approaching it. So it was a healthy E3 survey. It was a needed meeting that we had. And again, I'm not naive enough to think that everybody took what we discussed at 100 cents on the dollar, but I think it did build a better foundation to at least explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I don't want
That's
to
a
get in the weeds,
good,
but it was a pretty important thing because we would have lost people over it had we not had that, elephant in the room conversation.
yeah. And I think a lot of people, it's a natural tendency to try and avoid that type of conversation. But what comes out of that conversation once you have it, based on what you understand their thinking is something that helps get everybody on the same page. I love that example because that is something that has probably changed over the years. And, when you're able to sit down and say, hey, when we're going through an inspection process, our duty is ethically to tell a customer what is going on with their car. Do they need to fix it all right now? No, they don't. But they need to know so that, hey, if they have tires that they need to put on in 6 months, that it's not a surprise when the next time they come in for an oil change that we're recommending tires, right? They have time to budget for it. They have time to plan for it. And we're in northern climate. So if you get around the time for snow and they have bald tires, they're not going to be very happy.
Right. And listen, we lost some customers. We had, some changeover in service advisors. And as we were trying to get the right service advising team in there, we lost some of our longtime customers because we had new service advisors, didn't necessarily understand the legacy of some of our key longtime customers, which was we only fix what needs to be fixed. So we hire them, we train them the new process, we do a great 45-point inspection, and we present them with $3,000, as an opportunity. And they're used to getting 900 and fixing 800 and being happy. They didn't even know about the other 2,000. Now we're educating them on that other 2,000, and we didn't do a good job of communicating that we're doing things much differently now than we had been. And we're not recommending 3,000 today. We're recommending the 1,000. And so, we lost some key customers. That was a little bumpy. And to her credit, our office manager, Cheryl Fenton, she's been with the organization for 20 years now, been with me for coming up on 8 and was with Walt for 12. She's been kind of the matriarch of our business. And she would come in and, let me have it and say, hey, she manages actually another shop and she would never give me the customers, but she'd say, you need to know that you've lost a couple people that were good long-time customers. And you just need to know it. She didn't really say this is why, and we had to kind of evolve to figure out why. And I could probably call them today and have a conversation about it and wish them well and not ask for their business back, but just to try to explain it. Anyway, you're going to lose some customers in this thing, and it really does show the need for educating customers not only on their vehicles, but on your process and what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because otherwise, a new customer coming in an industry where distrust is the get started relationship, you've got to earn that trust. If you don't explain everything that you're doing, You've had neglected vehicles, and in today's market, people come in the mindset, I don't want to go get a new vehicle. So mostly ARO has gone through the roof for us as an industry, which is great. The trick is to be good and not lucky, right? So if you're good, you can explain it to people what you're doing and why you're recommending it. But if they've had a neglected vehicle and just been getting oil changes for the last 3 or 4 years, there's going to be a lot of pent up things on that vehicle. We really see that with fleets when we get them in, because we're going to do a 45-point inspection on fleet vehicles. You wonder why some of these things are even on the road. And, we let people know, look, when you come in, you're going to think it's really ugly to get started, but we're just trying to you said you wanted to keep these vehicles. If that's the case, then we need to have a really candid conversation about your fleet and where you are today and what you want for it. So we can help you not have to go buy new vehicles sooner than later, but you have to listen to us and trust us. And you got to educate people on the front end to get that on a good note. Otherwise, they think you're just ripping them off.
Any advice on how to educate them? Is it using social media channels? Is it with training your own advisors to be able to communicate better? Any advice for those shops that are out there kind of struggling with this right now?
It's absolutely the relationship building at the counter, because you're going to be there's going to be a point person that's going to interact with that key fleet person. Sometimes it's a third party where you're going out and having to do all the work with the fleet, management company. But for the most part, it is going to be that relationship at the counter. And I don't get involved in that as much anymore. When I first bought the business, I drove the shuttle to get to know customers. And I didn't fix cars, I didn't sell services, but I could get to know the customer. And I really did. And now I've lost touch with that. And I'm not saying that's a good thing at all, but we've grown a lot. I've made the choice to step out of day to day, so I don't have the opportunity to build that relationship. So you really have to count on your service advisors, and in my case, my COO Rob, his office is right there next to the counters, and he's involved in a lot of relationship building as well. So I think it just comes down to your opportunity to make that first impression, but it's also to level set with customers exactly what they can expect from us as a shop. And if they don't receive that and they don't see us living our values, we don't have one set of values for retail customers and another set of values for fleets. We have the same values. So not every fleet customer, not every retail customer is our customer, and we're perfectly fine with that. Our goal is simply to let those who aren't our customer down easy. I don't need a bunch of bad reviews because we were disconnected from the get-go. And occasionally we get one where a customer was never our customer. We didn't do a good job on the phone when they were coming in the door because, they started off wanting to bring their own parts. Well, that's a bad start. So you just have to have that relationship individually. And I don't care what the size of the account is, people still buy from people and they trust people. So you can have all the technology, all the tools you want, which are great to complement what you're doing. But ultimately, they have to believe that you're trying to do right by them long term.
Technicians, have you checked out WrenchWay yet? WrenchWay is a free online community for automotive and diesel professionals. Whether you're looking for a job or not, WrenchWay makes it easy to explore new opportunities, stay up to date on what's going on in the automotive and diesel communities in your area, and helps improve and promote the technician profession. Check out all of the job details you care about before you apply or interview with WrenchWay Top Shops. Details like photos of the shop and answers to the questions you actually care about instead of the same old copy and paste job description you see everywhere else. Open to new job opportunities but don't want to apply yet? Create an anonymous reverse job post and let shops reach out to you and see what's going on with the industry in your area through WrenchWay's Shop Talk. Join the WrenchWay online community for free by visiting wrenchway.com or by downloading the WrenchWay mobile app. Link is in the show notes. One thing that you mentioned earlier that kind of stuck out to me was that when you first came into the business, it wasn't like you were automatically accepted by the technician team or, maybe some of the front office folks as well. When you look at it, and hindsight's 2020, but like when you look at that, would there be anything that you would do differently there, or was it just a matter of getting in there, getting to know the guys and gals, and trying to really earn their respect? Or how did you go about that part?
Um, I'll give you my observation on the industry and what I've shared with the team over the years, a time or two as well. Um, I took the long route, which was to try to earn their trust. And one of the things you and I had talked about before is I actually do look at our cameras, but I'm looking at the cameras to catch them doing something right. Because I always, there's a, I think it's Holiday Inn and those brands that are basically saying, hey, do me a favor, catch our employees doing something right. Because we're trying to build on this positivity. Because I can't come in here every day, especially in today's labor market, and beat up on people and really just treat them poorly and then expect them to take care of the customer. So Southwest Airlines says, hey, let's take care of our employees and then they'll take good care of our customer. But if I have disgruntled employees, what do they say? That you don't leave the company, you leave your boss, right? So don't be that boss. And so I've had to say to our team many times over the years, I said, look, and I'm going to get a little bit, you know, real here with you on this. I said, look, my perception is that the owner of these businesses tends to come in, crap all over everybody at the front counter and tell them that they're doing some things wrong and that this needs to be done better and look at all the mistakes and blah, blah, blah. They walk in the back and they do the same thing with the technicians. And now what they've created is an opportunity for both the front and the back to build a bond through hating you as the owner because you're such an asshole. And I said, you know what? I put my whole life on the line to buy the business. I have no intentions of coming in here and being a jerk because I don't want to come into a business that I bought and put our family's money on the line and be stressed out because everybody here hates me. Now, I don't have to be all of your friends, but you need to respect me and the way that we're going to do things here. But I'm trying to catch you doing something positive so we can all go down a positive path together and ultimately take great care of a customer. But I had a service advisor acknowledge, he said, you know what? I never thought of it that way, but everywhere I've worked, the boss man has come in and been that heavy hitter because that's how I was motivated. And I just had to explain to him, I said, man, we have a real disconnect because I'm going to disappoint you. I'm going to try to support you and love on you. And you're going to try to take care of our customers and you're going to be held accountable to take great care of our customers. And if you don't, you can't work here. So you're going to have to find a way to motivate yourself. And we're going to put the triggers in. We're going to have great gross profit metrics and we're going to have good sales metrics and we're going to have a plan in place with a team bonus that's going to allow you to be motivated that way. If that's motivating for you, great. If you're waiting for me to come in here and crap on you, I don't really know what to tell you because that's not my style. It's not the way I, want to go about things. It's not the way I'm going to go about things. I'm not going to walk through that door and have you say, I hate that son of a gun. Like maybe you will for different reasons, but it's not going to be because I come in here and crap on you. You're going to probably think I'm fake sometimes, but guess what? When I walk through that door, regardless of what's going on outside of this place, that's go time, that's wow time, that's Disney World. You know what? Here we go. And I had some service advisors that I had a customer who was a friend come in and she said, hey, Bruce, you know how in Disney there's Tigger and there's Eeyore? I said, yeah. He goes, you know their personalities, right? I said, yeah. She said, you need more Tigger up front. So I've used that analogy. We had two Eeyores that were service advisors. They knew the industry, they knew what they were doing, but they didn't create that wow for the customer when they walked through the door. There was no immediate greeting. There was, it was, hey, I'm in the middle of something. I'll be with you in a minute. And it was just body language. 85% of communication is nonverbal. And our counters aren't high. We have a counter that's high, and you've got to really kind of acknowledge the customer. Then we have people that stand up, greet the customer. Little things that just matter on that first impression. But yeah, I've used that analogy. I stole that one, and I told her, I said, hey, listen, that is stolen for life. So, hey, guys, we need a little more Tigger up here. People will know what that means now.
It's a really easy one to remember. I think I'm going to put that one in my back pocket as well. That's a great way to like a great visual to think of what you need with those customer interacting people, because it is so true. A lot of folks aren't necessarily the most happy that they're coming to get their car repaired, and if
Absolutely.
you can make their day a little bit better just by being a joy to be around, I think that just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And, I told you, if you work for us, if you lie to a customer, you lie to me or anybody, then bottom line is you can't work here. But let's be clear. You can have a bad day walking through that door. And if that's considered lying because you're putting on your best face, then call me guilty because we've all had bad days. But when I walk through that door, you're not going to know what's going on outside of here. I might share that with you privately in my office, or I might share that with you in a professional way. Just look, I'm going to need a little time or space because I have this going on. And by the way, conversely, you can do the same. But ultimately, when we're greeting a customer, none of that matters in that interaction because the customer is really not in a relationship where they need to know all of that. Now, if they've been coming there for 5 or 6 or 8 years and you've developed a little bit of a personal relationship to that degree, then maybe there's a little bit of sharing that can go on. Hey, you've shared a story because one of their kids was having an issue and you could assist because you had a similar situation or you knew of a situation that might add some value for their situation. That's great. That's fine. That's not negative. That's being authentic. But, the idea is that first time customer, it's showtime, man.
That's great advice. When we look at the technician side, one thing that I talk a lot about is almost viewing a technician team like a sports team, right? Or a service business like a sports team in general. And with your sports background, I'm really interested to hear if you see some of these parallels as well. I kind of view it as those technicians are our players on the floor, right? They're the ones that are doing they're actually scoring the buckets, right? They're passing the ball. They're doing everything that makes the whole operation run. Does it feel like there are some parallels just knowing your sports background to what you're seeing in a shop or what you've dealt with in a shop?
Um, yes and no, and I'll tell
Okay.
you why. So there are, to their credit, there seem to be shops that have a great culture that put all of their technicians' hours up on a big board and they create this team environment. And the perception that I'm given anyway, whether it's right or wrong, the perception I receive from them is, yeah, one person turns 25, one person turns 45, one person turns 60, and they all have a goal to go meet and they're compensated and so forth. And there's never an issue. You got to remember, we're a flat rate shop and these guys are competing each day for, as we know, everybody looks around the shop to say, how come I'm getting 2 engines and you're getting 17 brake jobs, right? So that's the extreme example of where, hey, what's going on here? So I can't say that our culture is one where we can put up everybody's individual contribution to a team goal. So we have team goals. I agree that, and I've tried to use those sports analogies, but remember, I'm coming at it from only a sports analogy standpoint versus potentially somebody who has been a mechanic, who has developed a shop, who has all that industry respect as a legacy. Then maybe you parlay some of the sports analogies into it. I'm viewed as just a sports person because of my children and the things that we've done and that we've chased. So I don't have the credibility of parlaying just the sports analogies into the shop environment. As much as I've tried to build that teamwork, um, we do have good teamwork, but we're not mature enough as a culture to be able to put everybody's individual numbers on the board. We still have people kind of looking at each other's jobs and who's getting what work. And candidly, Rob is the one who quarterbacks that. So as COO, I get to be the good cop now because I'm not involved in it, and I don't pass any job to any individual technician. I can tell you this: Rob works his tail off to try to make sure the right job gets with the right technician for, first of all, the customer experience, secondly, for timing, quality, and so forth. So he works really hard on a given job. We do, as I described before, if we quote out $2,500 worth of work and you're the technician that finished 1,000 of it, you're getting that 1500 when it comes back. So we've had times where people are doing great, great 45-point inspections, and maybe we got a little slow period, but they're getting 3 cars that day because they had already identified the work that was needed. And so you might have somebody that's got a little downtime, and that gets a little quirky, but it can be easily explained. Look, they're just doing the work that they got based on prior inspections. And that doesn't happen very often because we're pretty busy as a shop. But on
Right.
the one-offs where it does happen, it can be easily explained. But I guess that answers your question in a way that I would love to parlay all these sports analogies in perfectly. But in fact, we do have individual contributors and individual players. And look, when you're flat rate, you kind of set that up a little bit. If everybody was on salary, you could have this utopia. But I truly believe that people who are hungry and want to perform feel much better at the end of the day when they perform. You might leave some days where you know darn well you didn't perform at your best and you didn't get compensated for it. So the next day you got to pick it back up and come back in. I had one guy that worked at another shop, and I had this analogy with him, and I said, look, you're a dog. We love you as a dog. You come in here every day and you're looking to kill and you're going to eat what you kill, right? And that's an extreme of, wait a minute, are you ripping people off? No, it just means that you're identifying stuff and you're getting really good tickets written up and sold for yourself. And he said, you know, it's funny you say that. I worked at a shop and they did take us from flat rate to salary. And I used to work my tail off till 5:30. But we had hours set up where we were supposed to get off based on our salary at 3 or 3:30. At 2:30, I started looking at the clock. He goes, because I wasn't going to take in that next car because I knew I was getting off at 3 o'clock. And he says, my whole mentality changed. And so for me, I'm very competitive and I want to get up and compete every day. I believe that the people that we want working for us want to win. I have every intention of winning every day. And so that's who we want working for us. And not everybody is quite that motivated. So we have to understand that a little bit. But at the same time, we have it where it gets a little contentious in the shop. If it's, we've done a good job of communicating where we are to the team bonus. We didn't always do a good job of that. But now everybody's so focused on it. I think we made it like we get a 10% bonus based on their production. I think we made it 5 months in a row right now. And we actually put in this super bonus, which was we started having people think about, what if we do this much more? How much more do we have to do to get a 15% bonus? So we put up a bigger number to go get a 15% bonus, and damned if they didn't hit it in May. I mean, that's a stretch bonus based on our capacity. But coming down the stretch, that's the 1 month where I can say everybody was completely hammered and on board. And it killed the shop because it was a 5-week pay month because we have pay every Friday. So May was a 5-week month, and then we had to pay a 15% bonus. And I was like, man, this is going to pay. It was, and it did. It stung pretty hard, but it was a record month for the shop. And it's that utopia you want as a shop owner, that everybody's working together and feeling great at the end of the month collectively, not just individually. So
how do you drive the competitive nature that you have into the shop? Is it based on the quality or type of people that you hire in the shop? Is it just being able to reinforce what your beliefs are and really the benefits of being competitive? How do you take what you have as a real strength and make that happen in the shop?
Surprisingly, I don't think people in the shop really know how competitive I am. So I've done a decent job of kind of masking that. You can't be crazy competitive. I believe me, our sons are very, very competitive, and I've had to explain our way out of a lot of, driveway altercations with neighbors and things, because there are a lot. We laughed about it. We had a party for Cam after the national championship, and we had a lot of family and friends and neighbors over, and we had some laughs about some of the Spencer driveway, interactions that took place. And I'm sure there were parents that were told some stories about the Spencer boys because of the fights and everything else. But in a work environment, you simply can't show that side. And as much as I want to win that way, candidly, I could have that used against me as well, simply because I'm not there that much. If you want to win so bad, why aren't you even here? Well, because I'm entrusting the business and empowering you guys to go get great results. And that's taken a little bit of time, but Rob has done a great job of really being that front and center, go get it person. And to answer your question, you try to hire for it. And sometimes you get it right and sometimes you don't. But I think ultimately, when the team does get to the end of the month and they know they're going to make the bonus, it feels pretty good. And when you get some momentum of 4 or 5 months in a row, um, there's not, what you try to fight then is that there's this expectation that you're just going to get the bonus. Because for us as a shop, we need to move those goalposts a time or two, right? Because you got to still grow and you can't just continue. We've had, cost pressures that have gone up on us. So you can't just keep the metrics exactly where they are. You have to kind of keep up with your cost structure too, because you got to make more money to put more on the bottom line in today's market. So anyway, whether it's healthcare or whatever else might be going on.
How often are you talking to your technicians about the performance of the business? So they know individually as a flat rate tech how they're doing and how their paycheck is doing. But one of the disconnects I see in a lot of shops is that they don't quite understand the profitability of the shop. They don't quite understand some of the financial metrics that you're looking at as that CEO type level person. How much do they need to know? How much do they actually know? And is there maybe a gap there to be able to help inform them?
It's a slippery slope, I think, because you have shops that, so I'm not there and I have to assume, and I don't think anybody's going to take the time at the technician level, candidly, to listen to me on a Zoom or a podcast for an hour. I don't expect them to. I don't think I have that much to say. You've been kind to say that we did have enough to say, but for me, I look at it and say it's a slippery slope because, we struggled in 2019. I'll tell you right now, I worked for free. And so, there's risk because we weren't running it well. We had a lot of turnover. We had to change a lot of things up. And you have those down years. So not everybody's going to remember those down years. So when you're having a good run like we are now, as that profitability picks up, there are a lot of shop owners who they say that they share all that. Rob is compensated on the gross profit and the net profit of the business as the COO. Other people are compensated at the service advisor level based on sales and gross profit. Technicians are compensated on hours turned. So they know their own metrics, but when it comes to showing the overall shop and the full financials of the shop, I'm not really inclined to do that, only because even though we're not, I think I could show those numbers today and be perfectly fine. And everybody would say, that's cool and that's reasonable. And I still want to go to work every day and kill myself for the business, right? In concept, that's what you'd want to have happen. But what about, we've got good margins in the business. What about when you leverage it? What about when you go from 3.5 to 5, right? And all your fixed costs really didn't creep up too much. That leverage and that profitability can really do quite well for the business. And I'm less inclined to want to show that kind of math to the employees because unfortunately, a technician who is really good can produce the output of one technician. That's never going to change, right? So if you're on a flat rate, ultimately, as you age a little bit, you can probably be more efficient, but you're going to turn less hours at some point in time. And for us as shop owners, we have the benefit of hiring additional technicians and leveraging the business. So I'm less inclined to want to share that much information, not because I don't love the team. It's just simply because I don't want anybody to feel bad. And that as the shop owner who's not even there, and Rob goes and hires 2 more technicians and another service advisor, and we take on 2 more fleet customers and we leverage all that, I don't want anybody to feel bad that they can only make X dollars by an individual contributing output. We can leverage it as a business, and that's great for the business model. The only thing I would say is you want to make sure that as an individual contributor that you're working for a very healthy business, because you have the peace of mind that you're going to, get a paycheck every week and it's going to not have the risk of being bounced. So I don't know. I give very long answers, Jay.
I love it.
I hope they're cohesive, but that's the reason behind it. I truly not because, and I'm not a greedy pig. I truly value my time and my ability to go and spend time with my family. And I'm willing to, buy my freedom with Rob running the business every day. And I hope he feels like he's compensated well for it, and empowering him to run everything day to day. So I don't really need to even check in when I'm not there. Today I got up and I chose to do this from, my home office. I will go. I've got a BNI meeting after this, and I may run to the shop to do it. I might do it from here, and I'll have my one-to-one with Rob a little later this afternoon. But I hope they feel empowered. I hope they feel good about what they're doing in our business and with our business, because they're entrusted to run it. So,
Yeah. And as I've gotten to know you, I think that genuine care and that, just, I can tell how you treat your people and how much you care about them. And I think it's coming from a very, very authentic place. So all of the advice that you gave was amazing today. I do have to ask a story to end. Do you have any good stories about your boys growing up? You talked about the fights in the driveway. Raising competitive sons would be quite a journey, I'm sure.
yeah, I think there's a good story in that. You're kind of that little engine that most people know that story. So, I just use an example of my oldest son. When he was in ninth grade, he was 5'4", 120 pounds. So he was going to a local high school here in Annapolis, and he was told that you've got from a skill set and from an acumen standpoint, you could play on varsity, but you're too small. So they put him on the fresh soft team rather than JV team. So in our world, varsity, JV, and then fresh soft. And all of his friends that he had played with made JV, and he had to play on fresh soft because of his size. And so we made the decision, and my wife gets full credit for a lot of this, really, but to let him repeat ninth grade. And so he took a half a step back. He transferred. We put him on a bus, and he went an hour north, up and back each day to school, to go to a school called Boys Latin in Maryland, up in Baltimore. And actually, all three boys ended up going there, and it worked out great for him. But even after doing that, he had to sit out a ninth grade year. You only get 4 years to play your sports. So he had played a year of basketball and lacrosse at St. Mary's here in Annapolis. So he transferred up to Boys Latin, sat out a year, literally redshirted a high school year, which is what you have to do. Sat around and ate chips and was the manager or whatever for the teams, and was bored out of his mind. And even then, to go try out for your travel lacrosse team, he didn't make that cut. It wasn't until I think sophomore year where he made like the exceptional travel team and then performed well there. But to think that it's been this easy path, and having two 6'3" suburban American kids trying to chase an NBA dream, go show me all those kids in the NBA. They're not there. The dynamic is more of a European centric, group of people coming, and then more of an African American community that participates in basketball. And so my kids trying to climb this NBA ladder is crazy. And so Patrick, this is the story. Patrick played 4 years of college lacrosse, and so he won the Heisman for lacrosse for Loyola, Maryland, which is it's an individual award. It's called the Tuarton. And so he won that. He was up for it 3 years. He won it his senior year, and then was the first round. Professional lacrosse took a little turn and became the PLL, which is the Premier Lacrosse League. And he was the first draft pick in that ever, because it was just getting off the ground. And he decided to play a fifth year of basketball at Northwestern. People thought he was crazy for trying to do that, but he'd only played 4 years of lacrosse, so he had a fifth year as a graduate student. Had some success there, and yet again had another major setback because, one, it was COVID, so he couldn't afford. He only played 1 year of basketball, and then from that he had to go sit in Germany and try to play some European basketball for a little bit because nobody really had an interest in him during COVID. They played an NBA championship in the bubble in Orlando. For those who are fans, they might remember that. Not too many basketball fans in our industry, frankly, but I've got a lot of shop owners that have become fans because of my boys, which is
I'm a big fan. Yeah. I follow it pretty religiously. Yeah, this is awesome.
It resonates with you, but not with our broader audience in many cases. But at any rate, every step of the way, he's had to overcome hurdles. So even last year, a year and a half ago, Patrick's now 28 years old. He had hip surgery. And so Cam, my middle son, had hip surgery. I've got a third son who's going to be a senior at Hood College out in Frederick, Will. And, they've all continued to have to overcome hurdles. And they continue to this day. So this journey of, getting to the NBA, nobody on here would think about it, but the feeling that you've arrived, that doesn't resonate with them at all. They're nowhere near where they want to go from a goal setting standpoint. So they're just getting started on their journeys. And Will finish up his senior year. I think it looks like he probably wants to get into some coaching. And so I'm proud of all of them. But the perception that this is an easy journey, or it's, I can tell you this, it's worth it. Is it enjoyable? No. Is it stressful? Yes. Is it worthwhile? Absolutely. You wouldn't change a thing. But it sounds a lot like owning a shop, really, right?
It does. And it's just such an amazing journey that you and your family have been on. I so much appreciate you taking the time out today to join me, tell a little bit of your story, give us some leadership advice, and hopefully do it again someday. This was so much fun.
Absolutely, Jay. Thanks for having me. And hopefully there's been some benefit to somebody that they can employ in their shop some way, somehow. And I'm really humbled that you even asked me to be on. So thanks a lot.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.